Hello, everyone. Hey, Purple. Hey, Collins. Hello, Miss Ginger. Paula. Welcome. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Should probably check to make sure my microphone is set up correctly here. And it looks like it is, so just let me know if you guys can hear me, please. Appreciate it. Hey, D4. Cheers. Cheers. So I just want to bring up a picture real quick here so I can put it on the screen for you guys. 5x5. Cool. Thank you. On D Live too. Awesome. Hey, Woody. Hi, Squirrel. Good to see you. So I wanted to do this earlier, but of course you know how that goes. And of course now I'm looking for the picture that I need and I can't find it. Of course. Let's check my pictures here. Hi, Halo. Hope you all are having a fantastic week. I just had this picture pulled up too. And of course, when you need it, you can't find it. It's like that item that you have laying around, or one of those items you have laying around your house or in a drawer where you see it all the time when you're looking for something else. And then when you actually need that particular item, it's gone or you can't find it. It's really annoying. So okay, this is weird. I don't know why it's not in my quick access because I just had it pulled up. Just give me one more second, guys. Sorry about that. Oh, hi, weirdo. Thanks for saying hi. I know you're busy with the move and everything. No problem. Hey, Grizz. I've learned a lot. Hello. I like that name. That's a good name. Okay, I'm going to look for it for like 30 more seconds, and if I don't find it, then oh well. It's my fault. It's my own fault. Okay, I don't know. I'll search for it maybe while I'm talking. Hey, Dave. Hey, Kira. Thanks for the ice cream, Grizz. Appreciate it. Did you beat the Sonic game? Hopefully. Okay, so I know there's been a couple people that again complain if you don't get right to it, with all, God forbid you say hello and stuff like that. But I see where they're coming from. Sometimes that's annoying. You kind of just want to get, click on a video and get straight to the information. But there have been a few people recently that have left me comments or a comment saying that they're not really sure like what my theory is because, well, I mean, I guess number one, it's really hard for me to talk about it. I know that gets old with me saying that, but it's true. But as far as, I guess, just my theory in general, I don't know. I guess I can't really say it in general. So I guess I'm going to try to, for those people who, are new and haven't been following me, for a while or since I started the case or working on the case, but working on the case. It sounds like I'm a detective. Since I started working on the case. I mean, I guess in a sense, we're all detectives, right? Better detectives than a few that I won't mention. You guys know who I'm talking about. So, like I was saying, for those of you who are new, my theory is a lot more different than everyone has. All the theories are different, but mine is a lot different. Let's just say that. So, and again, this is going to be a little bit difficult, but at this point, it's like, I don't know. I mean, what happens? YouTube gives me a strike. I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Even if I'm speaking in code and rewording everything, if they want to shut me down, they're going to shut me down. So, luckily, I mean, not luckily, but one good thing about my channel being small is that I think that it doesn't get a lot of attention focused on it, whether it be good or bad. So I think that helps out as far as that goes. But my theory is much more different, only for the fact that mine goes completely against the entire narrative compared to where other theories are still basing a lot of facts on or a lot of the information that they're getting on the discovery, or body cam footage, whatever, anything that has to do with the case. Screw the tube, say the say, Squirrel Man says, yeah. But so other theories go, like I said, more based off of the official narrative, and some not so much on the official narrative, because most of the people that are still covering this case know that there are many inconsistencies, many holes in that official narrative. No matter what theory it is, for the most part, people can all agree that it's some sort of cover-up. Like something's going on, something's not adding up, or some things aren't adding up, or a lot of things actually. So when their theories are more based on the narrative itself and the discovery, like I said, mine goes completely 100% against the entire official narrative, the entire discovery, body cam footage, even down to Shanann's Facebook. I know it sounds terrible, but that's just the way it goes as far as my theory. The reason why I don't base my facts off of the discovery or anything that's been released to us is because I think it's all fabricated. So that's how my theory differs from others. I just got a comment 5 minutes ago, or right before I started this live, and you could kind of sense that snarkiness, and even though it's in text, but it's like, well, I don't understand why you can't tell your theory when there's hundreds of theories out there, even though I've said this many times in my live stream. So I almost feel like sometimes, or I wonder if some of the people that leave these comments are even actually watching my videos, because even though, again, I do speak in tongue sometimes and reword stuff, I still feel like I'm getting my point out there. And I've said many times the reason why I can't say my theory or talk about my theory freely is because it is literally in the YouTube guidelines that I cannot talk about it. So that's when I, like I said, wonder if they even watch my videos or listen to them, because again, I've said that many times. I even pulled it up in a live stream that I did with Shan when she was nice enough to pull up all these documents for me. I was like, whoa, I should have you on every time. That was awesome. But we even pulled it up. We pulled up the YouTube community guidelines. She read them, as far, we didn't read all of them, but as far as like the hate speech goes, because that's what my theory would fall under, and why I've already received one. Well, I've received not a strike, but a warning. I guess I should be thankful for that. But if you're not careful, they come rather quick. So that's why, again, I'm trying to be careful. But we even did pull it up in the live stream. Shan read them out, the hate speech part. So that's why I'm like, okay, so maybe they're just only watching maybe just my last live stream. Maybe I didn't bring up the community guideline things or whatever. But it just seems like recently I've been getting a lot of flack for that. Like, I don't understand why you can't talk about your theory. It's free speech. Wrong, because there's that's going downhill quickly, very quickly. There's been a ton of or a big purge, not a ton of purges, but a big purge that just happened. Just censoring people left and right. And it doesn't matter if you're in true crime. It doesn't matter if you're in conspiracy channels. I mean, I'm sure they're not censoring like baking channels and obviously, but you get the point. But you never know. They could start censoring baking cookies. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you. You cannot talk about how to bake cookies because you might say a different theory on how you want your cookies baked. I don't know. I'm just saying. So again, the reason why, if you're new, I can't like openly say this is what I think happened or this is my theory. That's why. Hi, Red Rooster. Hi, Yasika. Because I hope I said that right. But so again, if you're new here, I literally cannot say my theory. And I thought about putting it on the YouTube guidelines again on the screen, just screen share, just have it up there. So if anybody starts to say, wait, why can't you? And then I'll just say, read the screen, but I don't even know if you would think that would be okay with YouTube because all it is just promoting their guidelines. You would think that'd be okay, but I just, you never know these days. So oh, you did, Red? I know. I'm sorry. I meant to comment back to you. I've just been super busy, but I'm glad you found it. I'm sorry about that. Hi, Lori. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I don't understand where the hostility comes from as far as like people's theories go. It doesn't matter how crazy a theory is. Like, honestly, anything is possible these days. Even the demon possession and the um, portals. I don't know. Anything uh, is possible. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to simply believe it just because I'm told that that's what happened. That makes sense. Man, that I'll tell you what, KK is relentless. I'm gonna have to do way more live streams than this in order to keep up with her. That's insane. I just saw that she was live. Sorry. So okay, so again, I got off track there. But so for those of you again who are new, that's why I cannot freely talk about my theory. I can do my best to again reword it, but all I can do is maybe just encourage you to go and read the hate speech, the community guidelines under hate speech, which I don't even know why it's under hate speech. It makes no sense. I don't know why you can't, or why you're not allowed to. And it sounds so like, I feel like I'm in like a child again. Like, oh, you're in YouTube timeout or something. It's like, oh, now that you're out of YouTube timeout, you can do live streams again. Like, it's it's funny, but then it's not funny at the same time. So hey, Allison. But yeah, so I can talk in code and stuff, but I don't know why I'm not allowed to question a narrative and I've said this before, and again, I know, and I'm sorry if I sound repetitive, and I'm just not even going to apologize anymore if I sound repetitive, because then that just gets really repetitive for apologizing for being repetitive. Okay, I'm just kidding. But I don't know why myself or anybody else is not allowed to question the authenticity of an event, or a tragic event specifically, where there are many holes in the narrative, in the evidence, or lack thereof, I should say. Why is Americans, I don't know how it is in other countries, but last time I checked, we're allowed to have opinions, and I don't think that there's a difference to questioning or questioning the authenticity of something when everything adds up. But when there's an event that's very, very public that doesn't add up, again, and there's many inconsistencies, that's a big difference compared to, again, something that is open and shut and everything adds up and everything makes sense. So we, the public, have a right to question what our government and our law enforcement is doing, and why there's so many mistakes and why there's so many inconsistencies. If they're going to act like they're being so transparent by releasing this information, I don't care what the reason was, whether they were saying, here, we're doing you a favor and giving you all this information, or whether or not the MSM, mainstream media, was behind it, saying that they were going to, sue them if they don't release it because the public deserves to know. Well, it doesn't matter, because you're still only releasing half of the evidence, and the rest you're saying it's not whatever for. I always forget this stupid term. I'm gonna just have to write it down on my hand. It's not deemed whatever for the public. Somebody can help me out in the chat, please. Or it's not in the public's best interest. That's what it is. And that's the one that they always use all the time for those documents and the evidence that everyone always FOIA requests. It's not in the public's best interest. It's not in who are you to say that it's not in our best interest? Like, are we not adults? I mean, if we're asking for it, we should be able to handle it. I'm not saying to release all of the autopsy photos and show us gruesome, nobody wants to see that. I mean, maybe not nobody. I always say that, but I myself personally, I can't speak for everybody. It's not that I want to see them, but it would help, especially when there's so many holes and there's nothing to prove what they're saying as far as victims go. And that's a good question, Allison. How are these other creators getting away with their garbage? Great question. No idea. Because again, they can throw out every single theory in the book. Accuse people, of murder, essentially, or being an accomplice to murder. But then I'm not allowed to, and nobody else is allowed to, question the authenticity of a case that doesn't add up. It makes absolutely zero sense. Because to me, accusing someone of murder or being an accomplice to murder falls into hate speech a lot more than just questioning the entire event in general. Because I'm not accusing anybody of murder or accusing anybody of being accomplice to murder or saying that it's a possibility. I'm just saying that for whatever reason, these people have lied to us, and they've lied to us on a massive scale. Now, do I know why they lied? Do we know why some people do things that they wouldn't normally do, or things that are obviously not moral? I don't, because I'm not that person. But there can be, again, many possibilities as to why someone might do something that they wouldn't normally do. So that's not where I'm going to go and accuse people of saying, you're doing this on, you're a terrible person. I don't know. Anything's possible. They could have been threatened. They could have been coerced. They could have been tricked. You just don't know. And for a lot of people that played part in this event, probably didn't even know what was going on until after, or maybe still don't even know. Because not everybody needs to be in the know. And I will probably say this every time, because that's one of those other comments that I get a lot as well, is there's no way that so many people, the coroner, the DA, the judge, all of the coworkers, there's no way, the police officers, there's no way that all of these people could be involved in a cover-up or part of the orchestration, because somebody would speak out and be a whistleblower. But you don't know that. I don't think that sometimes people put themselves in other people's shoes. Like, they just automatically think that people are going to do the right thing and just speak out. But how do they know that? Unless they think, oh, well, there could be a lot of different reasons why they might not speak out instead of why they would. So, do I know 100% that everyone involved had, hey, Fox, glad you're here. Hi, one Ironaut. Does it mean that everybody is malicious and is purposely involved, or it was involved to purposely trick us or had malicious intentions? No. Now, do I believe that all of the main characters, or I should say, well, characters fits, but parties involved know what's going on? For the most part in these events, they do. And you know who I'm talking about as far as main players go. And I know what some people are thinking. How could you accuse such and such of being or lying, and they're sick, they're going through this in their life, and I understand that. But, and it's terrible, if that's really happening, and if it did, or, it, you don't want to wish that upon anybody. But that's, that's one of those psychological tricks that they do. It's the victim thing. It's, this person is going through this, and how dare you say that she or he had anything to do, or anything, any part of it, pretty much. Because remember, they're a victim, or they're going through a lot, or they're sick. So the minute, even though nothing adds up, and there's people going around right now that have noticed these inconsistencies with other main characters. And I say characters again because that's essentially what they are, characters on the world stage. So it's, how dare you accuse who the narrative says or tells us that is a hero and a good person, but just because we're told that, and just because it might look like on the big screen that they're a good person, it doesn't make them a good person. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. I could say right now, or no, better yet, let's say, you guys hear someone talking bad about me tomorrow or something. And you're like, no, like, how could you say such a thing? Megan's such a good person. This is probably going to make me look bad. This is probably not a good example, but it's just to prove a point. How could you say that about Megan? She's so nice. She's so respectful. She never like talks bad about anybody. But I could turn around 2 days from now and trip someone just because I felt like it, because they annoyed me, and okay, that's a really bad example. But what I'm saying is that just because people are perceived that way, it doesn't mean that that's who they are. Does that make sense? That was probably a really, really bad example because it probably just made me look bad. But again, it is a good example as well, though, I think, because, you guys only know me as far as, hey, Dave, hey, Sandy. You guys only know me through YouTube. You don't know me outside of, the Watts case, or see me every day or talk to me every day, or so I could be a completely different person once I turn the camera off, or the live stream button off, because I don't have my camera on. But point is, just because we're told that somebody is a good person, or that the official narrative tells us that they're a hero and that they're, whatever, it doesn't make it true. And I think that's how the whole another part of the psychological aspect of it, and why the Ruseks are saying we're victims, poor us, so that anytime anybody questions their morals or their role in any of it, it's, how dare you? The Ruseks are suffering. They are victims. They just lost their whole, almost their whole family. Like, Frankie lost his sister and his two nieces and nephew. But that's that's how they get or stop people like myself from exposing the truth. Because the minute anybody speaks up about it, it's, how dare you? How dare you? You are a terrible person. How could you ever even say that about a victim? But they don't even know these victims. So this person that's saying, how dare you speak up about the Ruseks' terrible behavior, on social media, they're telling, how dare you? And they're sticking up for these people that they don't even know. That they don't even know. That they only know what the victims or the Ruseks or the Watts have told them, or what law enforcement or the mainstream media has told us. Other than that, we don't know a lick about these families. Even if it's someone who contacted the Watts or the Ruseks after the whole event and has been talking to them every day since, it's still not going to change my perspective on the case. Because people can be very good at being deceptive. And let's say for even a second, let's say for instance that, let's say I'm wrong, and or I'm wrong about everything and they are victims. We're going on over 2 years now, and the Ruseks are playing this victim card like still. So it's like, okay, I get that you're a victim. I understand that it's terrible what happened to you, but when you're still peddling for money and you know, putting up PayPals and getting people to advocate for you and say we're starting a Frankie Rusek fund to sue channel creators that aren't even doing what they're saying what they're doing, it's like, how long are you guys going to be victims for? And when are you going to start mourning the loss of your family instead of, you know, playing this victim card? That's if I'm, wrong, which I'm not. And I can say that with 100% certainty that I'm not wrong. I might be wrong about some things as far as what the motives were for this case, but that's something where you're not going to 100% know for certain. Not all of them, anyways. But what I do know is that this goes way deeper than a cover up. And that's the thing is, it's funny that it's like we say it's a cover up, but they're not even covering it up. Like they're literally throwing it in our faces, you guys. They are saying that this is what we're doing and this is what we plan on doing. Like I wish I would have noticed these, not that anybody would probably listen to me, but I wish I would have noticed these little Easter eggs and breadcrumbs that they left like a while ago. But I mean, and there are some that I have noticed like a long time ago, just like I made my first American Horror Story connection video well over a year ago. But as far as this other stuff, like as far as the video I made with the Great Reset with Shanann holding the magazine saying time for a reset. I don't know if you guys, follow just true crime or current events, but that's all we've been hearing is the Great Reset, the Great Reset, Great Reset, Great Reset. It's time for a reset. But when I first looked up, because at that point, I knew then that most of what they showed us or were showing us meant something, or it symbolized something, or it was something where they wanted to, send us down the little rabbit holes. Because that's what they do. So when I first looked up that whole picture in the office with Shanann and Chris and, I think it was, I don't remember if it's Bella or Cece. I think it's Bella. But when I first looked that up and I saw what it said on there, this was before anything had happened. Like, so this was like, way before they started talking about this Great Reset thing. So when I looked up that magazine or whatever that her article was in the magazine, I was like kind of bummed because I'm like, okay, I know that this means something. I know this has got to mean something, but nothing stood out to me. And a lot of the things that they show us and these clues, a lot of them will be right in your face. But then a lot of them might not be. They might be something where you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper for the meaning behind it. But for the most part, they're right in our face. So when I saw that, when it said Shanann holding the magazine saying, time for a reset, I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything. What the hell does that mean? I have no idea. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. But so anyways, I just threw it on the back burner and was like, just forgot about it. Until one of my subs brought it to my attention and she's like, am I going crazy or is something here with this? Because there's that whole talk about, on the news, the mainstream media, about this great reset. And here I'm looking at a picture of Shanann holding a Thrive magazine article that says time for a reset. And I was like, what did you just say? And I had to read it again. And I'm like, yeah, I know what magazine you're talking about, but I didn't even put two and two together because it was so long ago. So at the time, it didn't mean anything. But once it was brought back to my attention, it made 100% sense. So something that was once confusing and it's like, that doesn't make any sense, totally clear now. But I would have had no way of knowing back then what it meant because it hadn't even happened yet. And I know that it's like, okay, well, maybe that's just a coincidence, Megan. People talk about their time for a reset with their bodies and health or something, but when you know how these people operate and you know how they do their karma thing and they tell us what they're going to do in advance, and you have all these other connections in American Horror Story, all the other breadcrumbs that I've showed you guys, all the other Easter eggs, that's when it is not coincidental anymore. And it's straight up in your face, mocking us, saying, this is what we're going to do. So they they literally told us, excuse me, in advance that this great reset was going to happen. And even in a little, or little or big, whatever, however you want to look at it, quadruple homicide case that's, essentially is huge with all the documentaries, especially with Netflix coming out. It is huge, but if you're someone who doesn't watch Lifetime or Discovery ID or Reels or whatever, any of those true crime channels, a lot of people aren't going to hear about this. Just like I didn't hear about it. The only reason why I heard about it is because I went to Colorado that Christmas. If I hadn't gone to Colorado, I most likely would not have heard of it until probably the Netflix documentary, because I don't watch the news. And if I do, it's on subjects that aren't covering true crime. So, although it might not seem big to some people, and it might seem super huge to other people, I've never seen, honestly, and I've researched quite a few and followed quite a few cases of orchestrated events, and I have never seen so much symbolism and numerology and breadcrumbs and Easter eggs. I'm gonna have to find some sort of term for just all those combined, so I don't have to keep saying them. But I have never seen so many, you guys, in one place, and so in our face. And again, if you don't know what to look for, then they might not be right in your face. But once you know what they do and how they literally tell us what they're doing at that time, and for future events, they're going to be really easy to spot. Hey, Jenny May. And I'm hoping if enough people can wake up, I'm hoping that their symbolism will be their downfall. And regardless if they're doing it because of the karma thing, or because they think it's funny, or they're mocking us, it doesn't matter, because they're literally putting it and throwing it in our faces. And that's what is one of the things that infuriates me the most, is because they're literally mocking us and knowing that they're deceiving so many people. is what infuriates me. But they don't care. They don't care if someone like myself, well, they do in a sense because they're censoring people. But, and I think that's maybe why that's happening. I think that a lot more people are waking up slowly but surely. More and more people are waking up to what's going on because they're not slowing down with these events. It's just like boom, 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 one right after another. It could be big, it could be small, but they're just giving them out like candy, you know? And it's not just in the US either. Like, it's all over the world, all the governments, all the, you know, not all the law enforcement, but it's not just happening in the US, is what I'm saying. You know, 2021 is already crazy when Bernie Sanders is a fashion icon. Brian says, yeah, right? That's so crazy. And I think, yeah, that was pretty crazy, Fox, about the gorillas video and the Twin Towers. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, when that, you know, well, I don't even like to say that on here. See, that's how bad it is, you guys. Like, I feel like I can't even say 3 numbers or a specific date without triggering the algorithms. So I'll just say that day on 2001 that everybody knows about. I was still really young when it happened back then. Not really young, but I was young when that day happened. So at the time, I had no idea what a orchestrated event was, or a PSYOP, or a FF. Was so. But once I, you know, got a little bit older and I started, you know, watching different videos on wherever, and all these 2001 date conspiracies started coming out, it was like a huge eye opener to me. And I think I think a lot of people can, or, you know, it goes for a lot of people as far as waking up. I think that specific date really, really was one of the bigger events that really, you know, made people start thinking. Even though there's a lot of people that still 100% believe the official narrative of that story, and I think that's crazy. But there's those some people that they're just never going to see it. It doesn't matter how much evidence you show them. It doesn't matter how much facts you give them. They're still going to find some sort of reason to flip it and say, you're wrong. There's no way that could happen. There's no way that our government could possibly do that to its own citizens. No way. And now, do I judge those people? Do I think that they're stupid? Do I think, no, it's just whether cognitive dissonance, they don't want to go there. They don't want to do, they just want to be in their safe bubble. And that's okay. But those are also going to be the people that are going to ruin it for the people who don't want to be in a bubble for the rest of their lives and want to make a difference. Like, I feel really bad for the younger generations because this world is going to shit. Hey, Terry. I mean, it literally is. I mean, it's crumbling around us, whether you think that's dramatic or not, it is. So if people think it's bad now, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in 10, 20 years, or even before that. And I can tell you right now that that event that I was just talking about has a lot of the same red flags and characteristics that are in the Watts case, believe it or not. Now, that event in 2001, much, 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 much bigger scale, huge, way bigger. But it doesn't matter how big or how small, they're still going to have the same characteristics, essentially. And again, yes, they're going to cater. There's going to be different ones. There might be certain ones that one event has that the other one doesn't, but that's because it's got, it has to cater to that specific event. Because obviously, a terrorist attack is a lot different than a homicide case. I'm just reading the chat here. I'm going to try not to ignore you guys. I'm going to try not to make this too long either. I know I don't like to go too long, but that's just what happens sometimes. Kathy Williamson says, not dramatic. What you're saying is all true. Blank building blank was an implosion. I'm glad I'm old because it's getting worse every day. And that's the thing too, is, I mean, we literally saw that news anchor lady for, was it BBC, standing in front of that building saying that it was had already fallen, or whatever the word they used, when clearly it hadn't yet. So, and it's like, you could show something like that to people and they'll still make excuses for it. Or even all the engineers, the engineers for blank blank that have, came together and put all their knowledge, and people will still not even believe it's then. Like, they just don't want to go there. And that's essentially the same thing with the Watts cases. People don't want to go there, even if it means that Shanann and the girls are fine. That's probably going to get me in trouble, but even if they'll, it just boggles my mind, because the mind is fascinating thing. But you would honestly think that how, heartbroken people are and how upset people get about these victims and these homicide cases, and how, I'm still here to this day, people saying how they're, still cry at night because of Shanann and the girls. But so you would think that by, saying my theory and saying, hey, what if I said that they might be okay? Oh, hell no. It's like, how dare you? How dare you even say that they might be okay? And that what we were told is not true. How dare you, right? And I'm like, so the first time that I saw this, like, or had this happen to me, I'm like, wait, what do you mean, how dare me? Like, I'm saying that they might be okay. Like, isn't that good? Isn't that a good thing? Is there something I'm missing here? I'm not understanding, because you were just upset about thinking that they might, or that they're gone. And here I am saying, hey, I might have some evidence to prove otherwise, but I'm a bad person. So it's like, it's, I don't know, it's fascinating. But I just, again, I don't think that, number one, people want to admit that they were duped, that they were made a fool of. So they'd rather make up every excuse in the book for why my theory is not possible. Even though, like I said, myself, that I've said before in another live stream, I would rather swallow my pride and say, damn, that's really shitty. Like, I can't believe that they lied about that, or that they, would lie to their own citizens. And not only lied to me again, but like everybody, like millions of people. That sucks. That's shitty. I mean, I might be a little bit more mad about it, but I'm just saying, I would rather swallow my pride and say that sucks, but hey, shame on them. And I'm not going to let it happen to me again next time. Because if it does, then that's shame on me. So I would rather, even though knowing that it's terrible and knowing that there are shitty people in this world and there are corrupt people in this world and people who don't give a shit about us, even though it sucks knowing that, I would still rather want to know than be in a bubble for the rest of my life and potentially ruin it for everybody else who is trying to make a difference and keep our rights that are slowly being taken away. And now a lot of people might not think, well, it's just a homicide case, Megan. It's just why are they going to try to take rights away from true crime people compared to a bigger event that has a bigger agenda? Because we're still doing damage regardless if it is a smaller homicide case. And it's not just one homicide case, you guys. They've been doing it in other ones as well. And I had no idea. And so I was right there with you guys. I was duped as well. Not to the point to where I was physically nauseous or upset and crying over the story, the narrative of this case. Because again, what's more horrific? Think tech is competing? What do you mean sliding into it? I forgot what I say now. Sliding into it. Dang you. But yeah, so yeah, big or small, or no, well, yes, that too. Big or small, it doesn't matter. They're still happening. But what I'm saying is, I was also duped, not into letting it affect my life or affect me emotionally to the point where, I'm crying over this case. I didn't get there at all. But, maybe luckily is not the right word, but I was able to spot this case for what it really was, like, pretty quickly. Like, I still was finding inconsistencies in the narrative, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is definitely a cover up for whatever reason, until I started noticing those red flags that I'm constantly telling you guys to remember. And what's weird is the event prior to this that I talk about that happened in Vegas, it has two totally different events. Lives were, we're told lives were lost, but still two totally different events and scenarios, but still had the same characteristics and red flags. And so I was like, that's really weird. Why is this homicide case, that happened in a little town in Colorado, have the same why am I seeing the same characteristics that I saw when I very closely followed this other case or event? So it threw me off a little bit because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting to see these red flags and something so different. But that I didn't realize at the time that they orchestrated these homicide cases. I had no idea. I watched the documentaries on all the channels I mentioned earlier. Some of the court hearings, all those 30-minute true crime shows that we see on an Investigation ID, and I was right there with you guys. I mean, I wasn't like true crime buff, but I had no idea. I had no idea that they were pushing agendas with these homicide cases. And Laurel, yeah, I'd love to talk about the Vegas event sometime, because again, I did follow that extensively, like since day one. So I know a lot about it, not as some other people do, or a lot of other people do, but I think I made 2 videos on it, but I didn't make any videos like I did on the Watts case. But back to what I was saying is I was also duped. Not to drag this out any longer, but yeah, essentially I was duped just like everybody else, but just not to as not as much as a lot of other people who may be affected by this, these kind of things more easily, or let their emotions get in the way of thinking logically. But that's why they make these events so horrific, so that it does pull at heartstrings and it does cause people to get upset and think with their emotions and not logically. So my point is, since I didn't know that it was happening in these in the true crime genre, if you want to call it that, I didn't see it right away. So my point is I understand why some of you may not have seen it right away, or still don't see it, because unless you know what you're looking for, you're not unless you're looking for it, you're not going to know. And that's why I was fooled at the beginning. But even before I started noticing these red flags, there were other things that they just naturally came across to me as not right or staged or not adding up, such as the Nate's body cam, or not Nate's body cam footage, Nate's security footage of Chris bringing the bodies out. I essentially, or not essentially, but I immediately got the feeling of it, just a staged feeling right off the bat. But that's just me personally. But yeah, and again, you have to. A lot of people are just going to listen to what the narrative says or the mainstream media and say, this is what this murderer was, what he was doing on this, security footage, his neighbor's security footage. This murderer is carrying out the bodies of his family that he just killed. So for the majority of people, they're not going to think anything is shady about it or at all. Because if the mainstream media and law enforcement told us that, and that's what we're seeing on the camera, then it must be true, right? No, wrong. It's not true at all. But that's how you get people to believe what you're saying, is by conveniently setting up a camera and say, hey, this is what he's doing. He's carrying out the bodies of his family and putting it into his truck, even though there's many inconsistencies and people have broken down that footage and said, this is what's wrong. The truck's not moving. This, dead weight's hard to lift, yada, yada, yada. But people are still saying, I can see Chris carrying a body or Shanann's body out of the house and putting her in the truck. No, you can't. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot see a damn thing on that footage. And it's done like that on purpose. So although it looks like he's carrying out a body, which it does, I'm not going to argue that. So although it does look like he is walking backwards and dragging a body, it doesn't mean he really is. But people just believe it because that's what they're being told. And they said, well, I can see it on the TV, but no, you can't. You can't. You can't see anything because there's a truck in the way and the footage is very pixelated and crappy quality and you can't see a damn thing. I'm sorry. Unless you're seeing some sort of footage that I'm not seeing that actually shows it, then they're lying to themselves. They're lying to themselves because they don't see anything. And just because it's a shadow and somebody said, oh, that's Cece or that's Bella being picked up, it doesn't mean it is. We can, narrow it down and say, well, maybe if the girls were alive, then there's only 2 other children in the house. And then if it can't be Dieter, then it must be one of the girls. But there's no proof of that. People are just speculating that and saying that because one person said it and, it spread like wildfire. So are people just saying that they see Chris carrying out bodies because they really actually see him carrying out bodies? Or are they saying it because that's what they were told was happening by the mainstream media and law enforcement? Or are people just saying that because they want to believe so bad that that's what they're seeing? If you want something to be there bad enough, you'll start seeing whatever you want to be there. Whether it be Kessinger or Elvis or Bigfoot, Terry, if you're here. But again, just because that's what we're being told is happening, it doesn't mean it's happening. But they set it up that way on purpose, you guys. They set it up so that it does look like, and again, it does, so it does look like he's carrying out the bodies of his family, but without actually showing any bodies. That's the psychological aspect of it. Because the majority of people, again, are just going to believe that's what's happening because that's what they're being told and because that's what they believe they're seeing, when there's no evidence to show that that's what they're seeing. So if you want to fool the public into thinking that this man is really carrying out the bodies of his family that he just murdered without actually showing any bodies or any physical evidence that that's what we're being told, what better way to do it than conveniently, again, set it up with a camera, have a stupid bush blocking the cab of the truck, and have Chris on the other side, even though he knows about Nate's camera and it just is conveniently pointed right at the Watts driveway. He must just be a stupid, dumb criminal murderer, right? Because no one's dumb enough to take their family to the front of their house and carry out 3 bodies. But he's dumb enough to do it right in front of a camera. I don't know if that made sense, but I had to think about that. The point is it was just too convenient. Too much convenience for that video footage. And a lot of things scenarios are convenient with this case as well, if you'll notice. And Unmasked did a really good video on that. I think it was one of her NK ones. I don't remember which one because there's quite a few of them, but they broke down kind of like a timeline of all the convenient scenarios in this case, like that I've mentioned before. How convenient that the mistress just happens to be contracted to Anadarko a couple months before Shanann leaves to go on a 6-week trip to North Carolina, and then which opens up the opportunity for Chris and Kessinger to have their affair. And then it's like, so it's, husband and wife, babies, or married, babies, move into a house, get jobs at an oil company, sell, thrive. Mistress or, coworker comes and they, her and Chris meet. Wife goes to North Carolina for 6 weeks. There's your affair happening right there. And then wife comes back from North Carolina and then boom, everybody's dead. It's like, wait, what? Like, how did it go from marriage, kids, working at the oil company, mistress, wife leaves, affair happens, only knew each other for, maybe 2 months. Wife comes back into town from visiting her family in North Carolina. There for 2 days. Goes to Arizona for 2 days. Comes back and everyone's dead. Like, where's all the in between? It's like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, and I know I don't explain this. I'm not a writer or anything, so I don't. But I think it's called not foreshadowing, but it's just where one chapter leads into the next chapter, just, conveniently to build the story. And that's what this event or case is. It's a story written for us. and you have the wife fighting with the in-laws, and then the nut gate, and the husband and wife fighting and not getting along, and possible affair, and um it's just, and everything builds up. You see what I'm saying? Like a story. So everything's just too perfect. Chris meets Troy McCoy at Safeway for the Fire Stick, which just gave him the perfect opportunity to go and fix the leak at Survey 319 to dispose of his family. So don't think about it. Try not to think about it from a cover-up aspect. Like, even though it might not seem as simplistic, think about it as just giving the, again, writing the story. So instead of Chris going to meet up with the Fire Stick to have some sort of conspiracy with Troy to blow up the oil fields and kaboom, and get insurance money from Anadarko or whoever from the deaths of Shannon and the girls, and then having Anadarko cover that up, and then da. Like, think about it as just a a government, or whoever the powers that be are, building a story and setting up the next event for the next event for the next event. Instead of going into more detail about it, look at it as like them writing out a script for us and putting it out there for all of us to see, on this world stage. Like a reality show, literally. I mean, that's essentially what we watched, right? We watched, or like not a sitcom, but just a TV show. We watched all Shanann's videos, like from taking the girls to the doctor's appointments, from, again, fighting with in-laws, posts about the in-laws, her fighting with Chris, and how much Chris was great, and and just inviting us into the Watts home like we would if we were watching a television show. Like any of those television shows you watch, where it's so inviting, and it's like, oh, we're, I don't know, I can't think of one right now, but so you start with that, and that's all of Shanann's videos. And then again, it just leads one thing into another. And I know I'm not making sense right now, so I'm just probably going to just move on from that. But, and of course I got off track. I don't know. I'll look at the chat. But hopefully that makes sense. I hope so. If it doesn't, tell me and I'll try to explain it better. I just wish I was better at explaining things. Better. Why do I keep saying better? Better. And so that's like the reason for showing us, you guys remember the emails between Kessinger? Because again, they only show us what they want us to see and what pushes the narrative or the storyline. So in order to substantiate, is that the right word, or corroborate, substantiate, in order to prove to us that there was even an affair going on in the first place, or make it believable, that's why those emails, in my opinion, were released, or why they showed us that. Because they could tell us, right? They could tell us that Chris and Kessinger were having an affair, But is that going to make it as believable or as interesting if they just told us that, compared to if they showed us the actual emails of the mistress and Chris, how the whole affair started? You see what I'm saying? How it just builds the intensity of the story. I don't know. This is what I need, Tanya. You need an author. But it builds it until the climax. That makes sense. So instead of just telling us about the affair, they showed us the emails that started the whole thing between her and Chris. And so now people are like, oh, wow, the emails. And so it just makes it that much more believable. Does that make sense? Or how they just show a couple of things that Kessinger searched on the internet, which we know anybody knows that has a phone has searched for a lot more things than that. I mean, they even said they only showed us the one Pornhub search, right? Of the DP and whatever that she searched. And then in the discovery, it says, and that wasn't the first time she searched. There were several other times that she searched, sex websites. So why didn't you include that in the discovery? Why show us one and then, but that wasn't the first time she did. There were several others. So why don't we get that evidence? Why don't we get that documentation, if that's what you want to call it? Why are you just telling us that she made several other searches for it when you're supposed to be providing us evidence, not telling us that that there were more? If you're going to provide evidence and be transparent, then I want to see it all. I don't want to see or just hear you say, written down, oh, there were several other times she did it. No, I want to see it documented. I want to see the date that she did it. Her search for this DP on Pornhub. Why only give us one? It's like, but they throw their little opinions in there, their little, tidbits. Like, that wasn't the first time that Nicole Kessinger searched for on sex websites. Dun, dun, dun. You see what I'm saying? See where I'm going with this? And then there's another part in the discovery which I found it really is strange, is that they show the pictures of Cece and Bella at the barbecue, at the Sunday barbecue that Chris took of the girls. And then underneath it says, or no, wait. No, I'm wrong. Sorry. Sorry about that. It talks about the Oops, We Did It Again video in the discovery. And it says on May 29th, 2018, Shanann surprised Chris, yada, yada, yada. We know it. But then underneath it, there's like, an italic or whatever, like a little bit different font. It says 76 or 73 or 70, I don't remember the exact number, but certain amount of days later, or 70, whatever, something days later, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico would lose their lives or would be murdered. It's like, what? Okay, so why that part of the discovery are you telling us that this certain amount of days later, Shanann and the girls would be murdered? But we already know they were murdered, so why are you counting the day? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like they throw it in there like to make it dramatic when they shouldn't be putting any tidbits in there in the discovery. It should be evidence and facts. Even though, yeah, that is a fact, yes, this many days later, they were murdered from this day that you just mentioned. But why is that significant? Why put that in there? Just, these little tidbits just here and there through the discovery, because it builds suspense and it pulls at heartstrings. It's like, oh my God, 76 days later, then they were murdered. That's terrible. So when someone's reading that, to me, it doesn't seem I don't know. It doesn't seem professional. I don't know what I'm getting at, but it's those kind of things that makes it look like a story, a storyline, a written story, a script. And I totally got off track from where I was talking about earlier about not knowing about the case right away, about what was going on, but that's okay. Oh, thanks for the ice creams, Google. I appreciate it. Google thought, please. I don't like to call you Google because I know how you hate Google. Hey, FRV. Thanks for being here. But yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Like, it doesn't seem necessary. Like, why do they have to tell us that this certain amount of days later that they were murdered? So I hope that makes sense. And everything that they show us in the discovery, again, it's too convenient. It just fits too perfect. Like, where's all the in between? There's got to be more, even though it was only in a span of like 3 months, even though they did tell us some information about her home in North Carolina and stuff like that. But they tell us stuff, but then they don't go into detail about, like, they don't tell us how she was able to afford a house at 25, a brand new house, and build it. They don't tell you, okay, maybe because she was making great money at I was gonna say West Coast Customs. That's that car show on MTV. Whatever it's called, Dirty South. But they don't go into details about it. So, for instance, they showed us in the discovery that she Googled, I hate saying Google. She searched for Amber Frey or Fry. I always said Fry, but then someone started saying Frey. So I'm like, wait, is it Amber Fry or Frey? Anyway, searched for Scott Peterson's mistress and her book deal. But we didn't hear him once mention in any of her interviews or ask her, why did you search for Amber Fry and her book deal? So why put that in the discovery, but not, like, why did they think it was that important to put in the discovery, but they didn't think it was that important to ask Kessinger in her interviews? They didn't ask a lot of stuff. They didn't even ask Chris some of the things that he searched. Like, they put that he searched for dioptase. Out of all of the things that man searched on his phone, he had 2 phones, and you're telling me that all he searched for was dioptase, 2 volcanoes. What's the other ones I'm missing here, guys? Oh, Bandamere Speedway. How convenient, because it just fits the narrative perfectly, because they went to Bandamere, right? Saw that in the case right before this one happened. Conveniently enough, the only thing they happened to search for on their phones that appears to be relevant is what fits the narrative. And the things that don't make sense, like the volcanoes and the Dead Sea Scrolls, besides the fact that Kessinger was talking about that museum, the Dead Sea Scrolls, although they want you to believe that, but there's meaning behind that as well. But why did they put the Dead Sea Scroll thing search in the discovery? The volcanoes, the dioptase, the oxy. They never asked Chris about the oxy. We didn't even, the whole oxy thing didn't start up until much later. So why did law enforcement think it was that important to put volcanoes and dioptase and oxy in there, but didn't think it was important enough to ask him in any of Chris's interviews? Or the Metallica lyrics? Thank you, FRV. They asked him about it like in Wisconsin, I think, and that's when he said, "Oh, I didn't have my CD in the car that had the lyrics on it." Like, okay, hello, you have like 2 Metallica tattoos and you're this huge fan, but you don't know the battery lyric song or the battery lyrics. And the lyrics are not that hard. I made one video about them and I practically know them by heart now. So you're telling me you're a diehard Metallica fan and you had to look up the lyrics to Battery? No, they're just saying that so that they can push their little symbolism and their little narrative and their codes onto us and use that as an excuse, as Chris didn't remember the lyrics, or that Kessinger wanted him to look up the lyrics when she's a grown-ass woman and she can look them up herself. If she can look up double penetration, she can look up Battery lyrics herself. So don't give me that shit. Well, County, you just want to put the lyrics into the discovery so people can say, what does that mean? Why would Chris search that? Does that mean that he wanted to kill his family and put them in batteries? And, you know, it's like, and I'm not making fun, but I'm just saying that that's what they do because they want people to be confused. They want to like try to analyze everything. And why did Chris do this? And why did you do that? Well, if you guys would have fucking asked him, then we wouldn't have to sit here and try to figure it out. And I'm sorry that I said the F word, but I'm not going to lie. I do curse when I'm not on live streams, but I try not to do it on here because it's not ladylike, number one. It's not professional, but it pisses me off that much. Yeah, didn't ask about the fridge picture or the 4 chicken pieces, which is, that's still boggles my mind because, like I said, I think that everything means something, but why put it in the discovery and then not release 4 pieces of freaking chicken breasts? Like, it's just odd. I forgot I didn't have my CD in the car. Like, who still has CDs in their car? And I'm sorry if you still do, but actually, I take that back. I have CDs in mine, but I don't have the CD cases and I don't have to go look up the lyrics, especially to a song by my favorite band. And especially a song, like I said, that the lyrics are not very hard. There's only a few choruses. But they didn't ask him about it. They didn't ask him about the volcanoes. Chris, why were you Googling volcanoes? Were you planning to go with the mistress to like throw her in there or something? Or go on a run away in the sunset to a volcano? I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, it doesn't make sense. Why is it so important and significant that they feel like to put it in the discovery, but they're not going to ask him in any of his interviews? It makes zero sense. Unless, you know, like I know, that they do that for a reason because it's symbolic of, it either is symbolic of something, it symbolizes something, it's code for something, or they want to confuse you and send you down rabbit holes, or all of the above. And I'm going to go with all of the above. Just like, yeah, and Stephanie, hi Stephanie Michelle, by the way. Nice to see you. Hi JC. And anybody else that I missed, hello, welcome. Welcome to Megan's crazy conspiracy hour or 2. And yeah, and so like Stephanie Michelle said, they didn't even ask about the phone call with Jim or any of the many, many phone calls with Jim. They didn't even let us know whether or not they freaking interviewed Jim or didn't interview Jim. They didn't even say, hey, we interviewed him, but we're not going to release his interview because it's not in the public's best interest, or we're doing it for his protection. No, They don't even tell us that. They don't even tell us if he was freaking interviewed. They just bring Jim into it, and then everyone's going, "Oh, what the fuck?" You know? Who the hell's Jim? What the hell is he doing in this storyline? Did they interview him? Did they not interview him? Is he Kessinger's other boyfriend, or that she's like whatever, or just a roommate? Does he even exist? Yeah, we've seen pictures, but I mean, is he even breathing? Like, that's the kind of stuff that they don't tell us because they want us to try and figure it out and send us down rabbit holes and say, this is who he might be, this is who he might be. And so they just give us that little bit of information about good old Jimbo, put a little bit of social media on there so that people can find pictures of him. To kind of say, yeah, he's a real person, he exists, we're not just making him up. But we don't know a freaking thing about the guy besides what we found on social media. You know how easy it would be for these people to create a identity for people, or a fake identity? I mean, if they can, if they have the ability to make buildings fall into dust, they certainly can put whatever information they want on the internet, or scrub any information that they want from the internet. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize how truly simple that would be. Just because someone like you or myself can't do that, when you have all of the 6 mainstream media outlets working for you to push a narrative, and if you're the powers that be, you can make anybody up that you want or take anybody away. But no, they're not going to tell us if Jim had a role in it. He's not going to be able to confirm her alibi because she said, leave Jim out of this. Because law enforcement, they just do that, right? They're just going to listen to some mistress, right? I don't care if Big Daddy Kane, I don't care who he is. I don't care if he's a Freemason. I don't care if he, whatever. And they're especially not going to purposely make themselves look like fools and incompetent by letting this woman and her father run this interview and say, this is what's going to happen, regardless if she's a witness or not. When you're dealing with 4 potential murder victims, I don't care who you are, or if they're worried about getting her testimony. She didn't give us any information or give them any information anyways. So when she came back in, even though they shouldn't have gave her phone back to her after her and her daddy interview, that whole stupid video interview with her with their stupid phones and not knowing how to switch phones and the whatever with Kobach, at that point it's like, okay, you've given us nothing, you've lied to us, you deleted, we have a search warrant, we're taking your phone, and you're going to tell us what you know on that 111-minute call or whatever. Like, it's just, this doesn't happen in real life. I'm sorry. But, law enforcement agents, they're not going to say, yeah, I have that, like, we really want those text messages because we're, they're really important to us and we need those because we're dealing with 4 murder victims here. Hi, Buggy. Hi, Kitty. They're not going to say we really need those and then say, yeah, I'm going to bring my IT guy in here, Matt Saylor, who doesn't even know about iPhones. Well, glad we have you, Matt Saylor. Glad you don't know about iPhones. Or was it Androids? One or the other. Either way, why in the hell is this IT guy working on... My cat's looking at me like, Mom, I'm hungry. Here you go, baby. He's so cute. He just sits there all quietly. He doesn't even meow or anything. He's just like, whenever you're ready. Why would they have this IT specialist that doesn't even know anything? It, like, blatantly admitted, I don't know much about, and I can't remember, maybe someone can correct me, even though I made a video on it. Everything gets so scrambled. It was either iPhones or Androids, but I think it was iPhones because that was the most important one. But they're not going to have him go in there and say, oh, I don't know anything about iPhones, but we can try one other thing, even though I'm not going to make you sit here. I'm not going to make you and watch you change your Google password so that we can attempt less non-invasive ways so that we don't have to go through all the trouble maybe of doing another mobile forensics dump on your phone that we already did in your first interview, but then we gave your phone back to you, even though we didn't have all the information that we needed in the first place. So Matt Saylor is just going to... IT guy, remember? IT guy who needs to be fired, in my opinion, because if you don't know about both, especially when you're working with those phones in this case, you better find someone that knows what the hell they're doing then. So instead of sitting next to Miss Kessinger and saying, here, why don't we do it together? I'm going to help you since I'm the IT guy, even though you don't need an IT specialist to change your Google password. I'm going to sit next to you and I'm going to help you, okay, sweetie? Because we're going to get to the bottom of this because 4 people are allegedly dead. Instead of saying, oh, that's okay, sweetie, don't worry about it. We'll try. We have something else we can try to get your text messages. Don't even worry about trying the easy way and, recovering your Google password, which is all you have to do is say, I forgot my password. Send you a email, click on the link to reset your password. And then if that doesn't work, then say, okay, let's try the next less invasive way to recover your text messages, which a 10-year-old boy in his parents' basement could have easily done. Especially since she did not use like BleachBit, which some people think, or do a factory reset on her phone. I don't know what iPhones are called, but Androids are called factory resets. But essentially, she didn't erase all the contents of her phone, just whatever was between her and Chris or whatever was going to make her look bad. So yeah, instead of helping her out, I mean, and Verizon even gave her a piece of paper, like FRV said, with the instructions on how to do it. They didn't even bother to look at those. It's like, oh, that's okay. I'm the IT guy, here to save the day. We'll just do a different mobile forensic software on your phone, even though we've given it back to you and you've had time to destroy your SIM card and possibly use more data on your phone that would potentially erase or overwrite any other data that we didn't get the first time. That's okay. We'll just use a different software on your phone. Spend more of the taxpayers' money. And just skip all the easy steps. She didn't give her phone to them she gave her phone to law enforcement with a passcode on it. Completely different story. But she gave them her passcode to her phone. It was open. They didn't have to attack it and try to break this code off her phone. Like if they found it somewhere or something, or the person was not willing to give up their password, that's when you run into trouble. But when you have the password and it's not passcode protected or encrypted, easy breezy. I'm not talking CoverGirl. I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, just give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to get some water, but I'm not going to make this too much longer, I promise. Okay, sorry about that. It's like water. So although, not to drag this out any longer, but although to me, in my opinion, that's not the way you handle it. But I think that's done on purpose so people get angry, like I am right now. Like, why didn't law enforcement do what they needed to do? Why let her dad control the interview? Why let her control the interview? Why would they listen to her? Why wouldn't they investigate Jim? That's all done on purpose, you guys, to get people stirred up, to confuse, and again, to send people down rabbit holes. Was Jim involved? Was he not involved? Who is he? What did he do? Where did he work? Who did he hang out with besides Kessinger? Why did he call her so many times? Why did she call him so many times? Did Chris know about it? Like, you name it. They do that on purpose, and we've seen it for 2 years now. People trying to figure out who the hell this Jim dude is. And did he have involvement? And did law enforcement interview him? Stuff that we're never going to know because they're not going to tell us. Ever. They're not going to tell us if it was, redacted and they didn't release it for his protection or whatever. Like, why release everybody else's interviews but not his? Like, and that's the stuff I'm talking about. They know what they're doing. They do it on purpose. And they're not, my point is they're not going to, release this footage or show that they are incompetent of their jobs and make themselves look stupid. They're not going to, if this were all real, they're not going to do it. They wouldn't release it. Let's just say that, to purposely make themselves look incompetent. But that's the part of the psychological aspect of it. And for the most part, again, a lot of people won't even question it. They'll be like, oh, law enforcement did a great job. Look at it. I mean, they're interrogating Kessinger. They got their man in prison. They did amazing. Michael Rourke should be promoted. Not, said no one ever besides himself. And yeah, and like FRV said, she was forthcoming and she had bombshell information. You notice how And even in the documentaries, even though they're all mainstream and they just follow the official narrative, they don't even they make it a point to bring up that she deleted messages and stuff, but then the mainstream media and these documentaries never bring it up that she deleted information. It's, oh, she had bombshell information. I don't know what the deal was that she made with everybody in this circus, but whatever deal that was, she got the good end of the stick, because besides being the most hated woman in America, or maybe the world for a time being, but she's made to look out. She's either not talked about hardly at all, or made out to look like a hero in all these documentaries. So it's like, it's almost, I don't know, for the people who are not in the true crime community, who aren't going to dive into the discovery and stuff, they all see her as this hero and this victim. But then for the people who are in the true crime community on social media and dive into the discovery, they make her out to look like a completely different person and a scallywag. Scallywag, that's a funny word. Funny words. So they give us like two different perspectives for two different types of people, if that makes sense. Because it does in my head anyways. But I think they do that again. So it's like, was she involved? Was she not involved? Did she have something incriminating on her phone that she deleted? Or didn't she? We won't know, because law enforcement never did what they needed to do to recover them. Now, I say that, of course, based off the official narrative, even though I just got done saying at the beginning of this live that I don't base anything or my facts off the official narrative. Because the way I look at it is either A, by saying that they did not have the technology to recover or to do physical extractions on iPhones, which if anybody does their research will know that the only way to recover, and I know this sounds like a broken record, but the only way to recover deleted text messages, if the other less invasive tactics fail, which they didn't even try either, if those fail and you have to go to mobile forensics, the only way to recover deleted text messages off an iPhone is by doing a physical extraction. So they literally told us in the discovery, the Northern Colorado Forensics Laboratory did not possess the technology to perform physical extractions on iPhones. But they don't go into detail about what the physical extraction means. Nobody, unless you research it, or you're really knowledgeable in cell phones, or you're an IT guy, you're not going to know what that means. You're just going to read it and go, okay, well, they didn't have the technology. Okay, moving on. But they literally told us and admitted that they did not have the technology to get Kessinger's deleted text messages. Again, if less invasive techniques fail. So this whole thing that Kobach says about, oh, it's really important that we get your text messages because, we're dealing with a quadruple homicide here. And do you understand why they're so important, Nikki? Was a bunch of bullcrap. Because any IT guy, well, maybe not Matt Saylor, because he doesn't know anything. Sorry, Matt. But any legitimate IT person and law enforcement agent that does mobile forensics and deals with that all the time on other cases, they obviously know that that's the only way to recover them. So why didn't they go and get the technology if they didn't have it? Borrow it, call one of your other people in blue who is trained in mobile forensics, um, data collection or extraction. You had 50 other, agencies helping you on the case. You're telling me that none of them have a Celebrate or the XRY software that it is able or capable of doing physical extractions? Or even if get one from out of state, it might take a couple days to come in, or for the guy, maybe he's busy, but it might take a week. But you're dealing with a quadruple homicide case here. Remember, Kobach? It's super important that we get those text messages, but you're not even going to try to get the software that you need to perform physical extractions, knowing that that's the only way to recover deleted text messages. Again, if all other less invasive ways fail. I have to keep saying that. Jenny, I didn't know. I didn't see. What was your comment? Did I say the same thing you did? Sorry, I'm not paying attention to chat. I promise I will. But probably thinking the same thing. So if it's important as Kobach was saying it was, then again, why not? You can call Celebrate or XRY or any of these mobile forensics companies, and they will assist you. They will actually assist you in your case and help you to recover data from phones. But that's more of the, when it's locked or it's password protected or encrypted. So I'm sure if CBI or Will County or whatever called Celebrate or anything and said, hey, can you help me recover this deleted data from this phone that's unlocked and is not password protected? Even though I didn't try other less invasive ways of getting them, can you help me? So they probably would have laughed at them and said, you're wasting our time. Are you kidding me? Or if you didn't have the technology to perform physical extractions, then buy it. You can buy it on eBay, for Christ's sake. Sorry, shouldn't say Christ's sake. Or third-party websites that sell these. Yeah, they're a couple grand, depending on how new and what model you're looking for. But what's a couple grand for 4 people that lost their lives? Right? Allegedly. I have to say allegedly. If I don't, it contradicts my theory. So I hope nobody gets offended by that. But hey, Basket of, aka Private Pirate. Oh, it's so hard for me to say. I had to say it slowly. So when I did the research on that and I found that out, that was probably, to me personally, like one of my biggest finds in the case that nobody else had mentioned. Because if other people did, they would, if these other channels that get thousands and thousands of views, I think, a lot more people would be shocked. I don't get the views. And, I even made a video going into like the nerdy part of it and the technical aspect of it. And then I even made another one for people that didn't want to just more straight to the point, because it was that important of a find or significant. Because they are literally contradicting themselves by saying it's so important that we get Kessinger's text messages, but yet they didn't do what they needed to do to recover them. That's based off of the official narrative. If we're going by the official narrative and what the discovery says, based on the official narrative, they literally told us that they did not have the technology to recover deleted data. If All other less invasive ways fail, which they didn't try. I'm not going to say that again, but I have to say that every time. Because it wasn't necessary for them to do, like, maybe for some of it, but they, like, we don't know, because they could have tried those other ways, but they didn't. Or as far as we know, they didn't. Based off of the video and Matt Saylor, they didn't, clearly. And funny how the only text messages we got were screenshots that Kessinger sent Kobach. It just poof magically appeared on her phone when she switched phones to her Android. So you're saying law enforcement saying that the phone can recover the messages itself, but law enforcement can't even do it. That's pretty pathetic. The phone did it on its own, apparently. But no, they had to give us just a little something. So they didn't have to give us the full Celebrate report. They only gave us the front of the XRY report, which doesn't do shit or tell us anything. But they had to just give us a little bit of text messages, screenshots, just to show that this actually happened. Like, oh, so they were texting back and forth. They talked about ice cream and sleeping next to one another, and are we bad people? Just to build the story up, right? But then literally admit in the discovery that they did not possess the technology to recover deleted text messages, which is the only reason why they wanted her phones, right? Or her phone, was to recover those deleted text messages. That's weird. So either A, that was their excuse for why they didn't recover them, hoping that nobody would actually research it like I did. And even if we did, who cares? What am I going to do about it, right? They don't care. What's one person like myself saying they lied, they didn't possess the technology, because my nerdy self went and looked it up, and I just happened to be somewhat savvy with phones. They don't care. Or if you want to go based off of the cover-up theory with the plus the official narrative, that they just made that excuse so they wouldn't have to release the text messages, and they really have them, but they're just not showing us. Which I don't agree with. I think it's just a bullshit excuse so that they don't have to provide us with any false, fabricated, made up phone data dump reports. Because again, they're not going to go out of their way. They're not going to do more than they have to push their narrative. They're going to do just enough that people are going to believe. So they're not going to give us an actual crime scene, so they don't have to actually collect blood samples and DNA and fingernail clippings and put tape around the house. God forbid, that would be so hard to put tape around the house to make it more believable. But they didn't even have to do that, and people believed it. Simple, do not cross police line, whatever, crime scene tape. And people still believe it. Simple tape that they could have done. But no, they don't give us an actual crime scene, so they don't have to go out of their way or do more than they have to try to convince us that this really happened. Like they should have. Yes, exactly, Paula. They should have to do that. They should. If they're going to be transparent, or if they were forced to be transparent, then why aren't they? Where's all the evidence? Where in the hell were these people allegedly murdered? And if law enforcement doesn't even know, then that's scary in itself. If we're going to, say, yeah, this narrative actually happened and we're going to go based off of the discovery, then that's super scary in itself if law enforcement doesn't even know what the hell's going on. But if we look at it from a different perspective, based off of my theory, they're just going to tell you, oh, we found some hair on the inlet, some blonde hair on the inlet of the oil tanks, but we're not even going to show you a picture of that. What is that? Are we not fit for that? Can we not handle some hair in the inlet that you're saying was there, that you're saying is evidence? It's not an autopsy photo, it's a tuft of hair. But they're not going to. They're just going to say, this is what we found, and not show any evidence of it. Even though if they really, really wanted to just go all the way, put a tuft of hair right there and take a picture of it. But they don't have to for people to believe it. All they have to say is, this is what we found, and document it as evidence in their stupid discovery, and people will believe it. And say, well, they redacted it, and make up excuses for it. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to see evidence. Show me evidence. And even then, it's going to be very difficult for me to believe it, because pictures can be very easily manipulated and deceiving. But at least they tried. At least they're going to that attempt to do it, but they don't, you guys. They don't do it. They only do what's necessary to push the narrative and their agenda. Just enough that people will believe it. Because if law enforcement said it, it's got to be true, right? Or if the mainstream media told us that this is what happened, it must be true. No, it doesn't. Not in the slightest bit. And Sarah Rainey says, yeah, the case has made a crap ton of money for people. And that's always going to be a motive in these events. There'll be multiple agendas, but money is usually right up there on the top. Follow the money. Who's going to benefit the most from orchestrating all this? I mean, and I'm still new to this is the only true crime case that I've covered or followed to this extent. So correct me if I'm wrong, but has there been any other amount of information released in another case as much as released the amount that was released in this case in another case? As far as discovery goes, body cam footage, the victim's Facebook profile being public for everyone to see. Was everybody's personal information released? Addresses, names, phone numbers, not redacted. Has there been another case in true crime like this, where everything was just out in the open? Well, not everything, but the amount that was or is. Because as far as I know, I haven't found any. And all the cases that I've found where I could find documentation of it, the parties involved, their personal information is redacted and protected. I found a couple that Miss Famous Tammy Lee even covered. And yeah, people like Spacebound said, you shouldn't just believe it just because, he said. But that's the thing too, is like, why would anybody question it in the first place? Because people don't automatically think law enforcement, government, corrupt, and just automatically go there. The majority of people are not in it. I mean, and I don't expect them to. You wouldn't think that unless you, again, are aware that these things happen, that these events happen, that they're happening all the time. You wouldn't ever question it. You wouldn't ever question whether or not what you're seeing on Nate's security footage. You wouldn't question it. Because why would you? Again, unless you're looking for the corruption and I don't mean looking for it like you're trying to find it. I mean, unless you know, again, that it happens and what to look out for is a better way to say it. And Spacebound, there is corruption, horrible corruption. But that's what I was saying earlier, is they're not going to release this information and, again, make themselves look like idiots or incompetent, or say, hey, look at all this corruption going on that we're doing, and put it right in our faces. I don't see that happening unless there's some sort of an agenda behind it. Because a lot of people don't know that mainstream media and the U.S. government they can legally lie to us and push propaganda, okay? So whether it be a little story about a cat being rescued, that was found and starving, and, whether they don't know why they would make that up, this is just an example, but whether it be something small like that, like a, cute little story just to pull at heartstrings and, I don't know, make the veterinarians money. I don't know. I'm just saying that it could be anything. They can lie about anything small and tiny like that, to a quadruple homicide case, to an event that happened in New York City. Okay? So it can be tiny or it can be ginormous, but they can legally do it. And they don't have to answer for it. They don't have to, they're not going to have repercussions for it. Not that they ever do for anything. But now they can, they've done it before. Prior to 2012. It's called the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012. Because prior to that, you couldn't push propaganda on U.S. citizens. It could only be foreign. And then the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012, the first one was 1948. 2012 reversed that. Now, it's not going to obviously say it right in the bill or whatever, that's what they're doing. It's not going to say how I just said it. It was just a loophole that Obama, thank you, Obama, used to make it legal for the mainstream media and the government to push propaganda and lie to the public. So if anybody out there thinks that our government is not capable of orchestrating any type of event to push an agenda, then they're sorely mistaken, because it's been happening for years and it's going to continue happening. And they're just so they work so well, these mind not mind control, but I don't want to say the P word, the PSYOP operations. They work so well on the majority of people that even if people do start to wake up, I don't ever think, unfortunately, that it's going to be enough to stop these events from happening. But at least if more people wake up, then maybe it'll make it a little bit more difficult for them to do them. You see what I'm saying? So if less and less people are fooled so easily, then it won't push their propaganda and their agenda on at least on as many people. You're still gonna have people out there that are, again, gonna go the rest of their lives and never know the difference and believe everything that the mainstream media and government tells them. That's just how it goes. There's no saving those people, unfortunately. But for those that have an open mind and don't want to live in a bubble, like I always say, at least those ones have the potential to wake up, and again, at least they won't be victim to these events or as many of them, and maybe it'll make it more difficult for them to be successful. Spacebound. Yeah, I know. I feel that way sometimes too, but it's like when I said that earlier, I don't know if you were in here earlier, but it sucks knowing that there's so much corruption out there, and that, again, people are shitty, unfortunately, and these are people who do not care a lick about us or what we have to say or what our feelings are or that they're hurting people. They don't care. It's simply, they just don't care. And it's scary knowing that there's that many people out there that are that shitty and just no morals, but I think I know I'd rather know what's going on around me than just live in a shell the rest of my life. And that might be fine for some people. But those people, and I don't like to say those people, but those types of people are the ones that are going to ruin it for all of us in the end, because of their cognitive dissonance and their not wanting to go there and not wanting to know what's going around and be in their little safe haven. because those are the ones that are going to be begging for our rights to get taken away, that have already done that. That, that I believe is happening now, as far as, how dare you accuse this woman who was murdered, this innocent woman who was murdered, of murdering her children. How dare you? And that's when you get people outraged. And that's when people start saying, please do something about it. This needs to be stopped. People can't be going and accusing victims of murdering their children. And so that's, again, when the whole Hegelian dialectic comes into play, that they always use. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem. We then react and turn to them for a solution, not knowing that they were the ones who actually created the problem in the first place. Essentially begging for our rights to get taken away by the people who created it in the first place. So anytime I see anywhere people begging the government for them to literally take our rights away, whether it be free speech, guns, whatever, it's scary. And they don't realize what they're doing, that they're actually doing more harm to us than they are good, even though, they truly think that what they're doing is going to be beneficial, but it's actually going to be not beneficial at all. Because they're going to wake up one day and they're going to not even realize it. They're going to be like, wait, what do you mean I can't go into the true crime community and voice my opinions about this case and give my thoughts on it? What do you mean I'm not allowed to? Well, you just got done begging them for Google and Facebook and Twitter to stop these people, KK, Lana, of making these accusations against innocent victims. And they're going to say, well, I didn't mean like all of free speech. I just meant that they shouldn't. Well, that's where it all starts. Because they can't just come out. They're not going to just come out and say, we're taking your free speech away because we don't like people like Megan J and other, truthers out there. If I don't know what the truthers, people who are trying to bring to light these operations and this corruption. There's more people waking up, and I think that that's why they're starting to really crack down on the censorship, because even though we're still outnumbered, I think we're starting to really, well, not me, because I have such a small channel, but the bigger channels, that have like 500,000, even 10,000 subscribers, they're making too much of a stir. They're stirring up too much. People are starting to come around. They're starting to wake up. And so they don't want those people like myself and others questioning these tragic events, even though there's many holes and inconsistencies in their narrative. So they're not going to come out and just say, we don't want you doing that, so we're going to censor you and you can't talk about that. Because you know what that's going to do? That's going to cause a lot of people to wake up, a lot more than they'd want to. When you just come out and say, hey, we're taking your rights away as citizens, that's not going to work on the people. So what they do is the Hegelian dialectic thing, which is rather brilliant, to say the least. So they will intentionally create a problem knowing that we're going to react and say, do something about it, turn to the people who we think are actually there to protect us, when for the most part they're not. There are still good law enforcement people out there and government officials. Well, I don't know with the government lately, but I can't say all of them. But either way, there's a lot of corruption out there. So, and a lot of people think that the government is truly there for our well-being, and they're just not. So they know that the people that believe that, they're going to turn to them and say, do something about it, and have no idea, no clue at all, that they're actually begging for the rights to get taken away, because they're so upset about what's going on, not knowing that they're the ones that created it in the first place, until it's too late. So the ones that want to live in their bubble and don't want to go there and don't want to see the reality of what's going on, because look around. I don't know how anybody could ignore that. But they're unfortunately going to be the ones that are going to ruin it for all of us. So the more people that wake up, the better. Whether I can wake up 1 or 10,000, if it takes me 5 years. The more people that wake up, the better. In my opinion. But on that note, I'm going to end this. I'm sorry if I ignored the chat again. Actually, I did ignore the chat again, and I apologize. I know sometimes I talk a little fast. I'm going to try and not do that. But when I get on my rants, I do that sometimes. But I do take into consideration what people say in the comments, even if they are rude or snarky. I don't know why I've been using that word snarky a lot lately. I still take constructive criticism, because I do want to better myself and make these lives better for you guys as well. So I will try to work on that kind of stuff. Yeah, basket of that. I don't even know. I don't know anything about stocks, so I cannot help with the GameStop thing. I know that it's like you said, it's a fiasco. I didn't even know that GameStop was still open. I thought they were like out of business a long time ago. Shows how much I know. Hi, Mama 3. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you for the diamond, basket of, and aka Private Pirate. So hard for me to say your name. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, and if you guys are not tired, bored, want to hear some good information outside of true crime, current events, what's going on in the world, enjoy music, laughs, I highly recommend going over to DLive and following my friend Tech Ty. He has live streams Tuesdays through Saturdays, same time. He's also doing a trivia he does trivia night the last Saturday of every month. So I think it's this coming Saturday. He does trivia. So it's really fun. If you guys have time, please go over there. I'll leave his link in not the description, but the chat. And yeah, follow him. Thanks, everybody. Until next time. Bye. I don't know how to sign off. I'm like, bye. Okay, bye.